Bernie, give me a little bit about your background and what led you to start Microart Services back 40 years ago.
Yes, it was 40 years ago, more or less. I left Motorola in 1979 and basically started on my own, just as a design company, just myself and one or two helpers. And then in 81, I decided that I was going to go bigger. So that's when I incorporated Microart Services, Inc. as the company to grow. And I was working out of my own home before that, and I rented a 1,500 square foot facility on Kennedy Road in Scarborough and started that way, just by myself. And I added staff along the way. At one point, we grew in the first 4 years, we grew to about 40 designers, which is an awful lot of designers, because we had no manufacturing facility at that time.
Yeah.
So it was just basically we laid out printed circuit boards. We had some huge customers, like IBM was our largest customer, where we did all the design work for IBM for all the products that they made in those days.
Okay. And Bernie, were you doing that with like red and blue tapes, or was it black tapes? And
I think by that time it was already red and blue. Yes. By 81, by 79, it was already red and blue tape. Basically, I did the hand sketch of the circuit and then just taped it up. And that was the medium by which the bare boards got made. And made a bill of material, and that's how the board got built. So but yeah, I did start it in like 75, 76 at Motorola. I was the first guy in North America to use a red and blue tape.
Wow.
Anyway,
that's really interesting, Bernie. I started my career in 82 as a printed circuit board designer in Cambridge, England. So yeah, I used to go home every night with bits of red and blue tape on my sweater, and you'd peel them off, and good times actually. And worked in drawing offices with like, two dozen draftsmen laying out printed circuit boards for Acorn computers.
We were all basically draftsmen, in those days we were all draftsmen by trade, and grew into doing circuits. So, and then I think by around 84, we started to do color coded layouts. So that were digitized.
Yeah.
And we used a facility in Ottawa that I did not own, but I used their services to do all the digitizing for us. And then that went on for a number of years. I sold the company. I sold Microart back in 87, and I moved down to Florida, bought a house down there, and so Microart grew after that. After we had about 40 designers, it grew with a different owner, but I kept my IBM accounts because they were mostly in Florida, and basically I spent time there until I finally got back to Microart in 2001.
Okay.
But the owners that I sold to were they kept it going until 2001 when they decided that they were going to retire.
Okay.
So, but I wasn't ready to retire, and I came back and helped them out. And then in 2004, I believe, Microart was sold to another owner, and who then sold eventually to Mark.
Wow. Okay.
In 2002, we got our first piece of machinery because I knew I could recognize that Microart wasn't going to go on forever because computers now started to do the design work.
Yeah, yeah, auto readers and such.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, in 2002, I persuaded the owners to buy our first assembly piece of equipment, which we still have here today.
Wow, cool.
Oh,
Nice.
Samsung machines, they last forever.
Yeah, they do go on.
They do
You're still cranking stuff out on that one, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We used
That's pretty impressive.
A couple of years later, we bought a CP40. First machine was a CP20. Second machine was a CP40, and that's still here too.
Yeah.
And that's how basically Microart grew into an assembly shop.
We don't from design to assembly.
Yeah, we don't do a heck of a lot of design right now, so it's just one or two people doing design work. But it's mostly an assembly shop now. So and that's where we grew.
Yeah, you know what? It's really interesting, Bernie, when you look at the way you kind of, been in and out of the business backwards and forwards, and still stay involved to this day. Mark, when did you first get to know Microart?
Well, I knew Bernie before Microart. Well, I guess I knew Bernie in his first iteration of Microart, and then we met each other when Bernie was at the SMT Center, and that would have been in 88 or 89, I guess.
Yeah, right, 89 probably.
About 89 time frame.
Okay.
So then I got to know Bernie then, and then we worked together for about 5 years, and then we went our separate ways, but we kept in touch. And then when Bernie came back to Microart in 2001, I guess he called me in 2004 or 5.
2004, yeah.
2004 called me and said, "Hey, when do you come and join me here? It's a great place." So hey.
So you did. So what were you doing before then, Mark?
I was doing. I was always in assembly. Well, I was a printed circuit board designer originally too, and actually Bernie taught me a lot of what I know, or the majority of what I knew about printed circuit board design, anyways. And then after the SMT Center days of doing PCB design, I got into assembly, and had a small shop for about 3 years. That didn't work out, so I folded that up, and then I just went to work for other CMs. Local CMs here in Toronto, and then when Bernie called, I thought it was a great opportunity to get back with somebody I know and somebody I enjoyed working with.
Yeah. So then you decided to acquire the business. Which year was that?
That was 18.
Yes.
Yeah, 18 in 2018. The owner had a previous offer from another contract manufacturer. But he decided against it. So we knew he was anxious to sell the business.
He was ready, yeah.
Yeah. So we made him an offer and he accepted. So.
Fantastic. And when you say we, is that yourself and investors, or yourself and a team, or?
Yeah, I have a minority shareholder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah.
I'm too old.
Why you, Bernie? Are you properly retired now, Bernie, or is that never going to happen?
I'm sitting here in the Microart office, so I'm not retired.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's the answer to that
we won't
question.
Let him retire.
I'm 74, and I still like to come in. I still like to do the work, and I still wake up in the morning and I want to get to work, and I'm not ready to retire yet.
Yeah, it's really interesting as we sit here, three guys that started their career in PCB design. And when you look at manufacturing for all its evolution, you've still got to really understand the design of a printed circuit board to do a great job of assembling and building it. That's as important now as it ever was, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, I think one of the issues we still see is that I still believe there's a difference between a printed circuit board designer and an engineer doing a design. An engineer will design the board to accommodate their specifications, i.e. electron, certain electronic characteristics that they need, but you still need to be able to build them. And a PCB designer just tends to know how to make it more readily manufacturable.
We can envision what the board should look like and how it should actually go together. So we know that you can't put one component too close to another component, even though the electrical engineer would say, oh, as close as humanly possible. But we know that when the machine actually puts that component down, it's not that way. Like you gotta leave space. So anyway, we envision the things that the engineer can't envision.
Yeah, and I think that becomes really important, and it's that whole design for manufacturing process, isn't it? So you're designing stuff that you can manufacture. When you switched to manufacturing, I guess that was, like you say, in the early 2000s. You recognized the trend that was happening and the demand in the market. You've grown pretty substantially since then.
We were actually in 2001 when I came back. We were actually sending stuff out for assembly. So customers were asking us to do the board layout,
get stuff made,
get the bare board made, and then saying, well, how can I get this assembled? Oh, well, we can arrange that for you. And we did the assembly work ourselves. And then one day in 2002, we finally said, well, gee, why don't we do that ourselves? And that's when we bought our first setup, first machine and first line, and we did it ourselves. So, and we recognized that sooner or later, the computers were going to take all this design work away from us. And because auto routing, I guess in those days started, that was the sort of beginning of auto routing. And even though the auto router computers were pretty poor early on, they couldn't properly.
They did some crazy stuff, didn't they? You'd see some crazy board layouts come out of those.
They added layers rather than trying to figure out how to get the trace from point A to point B. Oh, we'll just add a layer.
Yeah, just add a
layer. That's the easiest way.
I'd never seen a 20-layer board until I saw an auto router.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They did some weird stuff, and we, as designers, you'd spend a lot of time straightening all that stuff out for them and creating a board that was actually practical to manufacture as a PCB, but also to assemble. So that became a big part of the job. So 2002, you put in your first piece of equipment. Now you've got how many lines, Mark?
9 here in Markham, and then 3 down in Buffalo.
Yeah, and that's pretty much state-of-the-art stuff. You're constantly investing in new equipment, and and the barrier to entry has got higher and higher. It's a few $1 million to set up an SMT facility now.
Oh yeah, and you look at the advancements in the equipment, especially the AOI equipment. We just actually had 2 new AOIs arrive this week. Last week now. And we're doing final inspection with AOI now. Instead of just doing SMT, we do final inspection with special AOI equipment too. We purchased one last year. We now have 4 doing it. So.
Yeah, and it's constant investment. You've got to stay ahead of that because everything's getting smaller and smaller, but also people are trying to get to market faster and faster. You've got to get through a lot more iterations. One of the things we're seeing at the moment is this big demand, and this must be interesting for you, Bernie, because in that 40 years, you've seen so much assembly business and PCB manufacturing go to Asia. Now we're seeing people say, hey, maybe that's not the right solution. Maybe not all of it should have gone there, and some of it needs to come back, or some of it should have stayed. You're seeing that, and you're getting a dividend from that, Mark?
Oh, no question. We're seeing a lot of jobs now that we think would have moved maybe 2 years ago offshore that are staying now.
Yeah. And Bernie, when you look at that, is that like, do you look at that and think should never have been out there in the first place? Should have always stayed in Canada, or should have always stayed local?
Well, yes, sure. But when it started to go offshore, 6-7 years ago, I think probably around then. Anyway, yes, I think it's all slowly starting to come back, and I think the U.S. is probably realizing. U.S. government is starting to realize that they've got to get, like, they're starting a chip manufacturing back down in Arizona. They're spending like $20 billion on chip manufacturing and doing the actual wafers here. Well, wafers have never been done in North America. So they've always come in from the Far East, and now they're going to build them here. And I think there's recognition that we want to do that kind of stuff here just for safety's sake. Like, one of these days, China could, they actually could change life and say, well, you're not going to get any more chips from us.
No more semiconductors for you guys. Yeah. And there's plenty of challenges around that at the moment, Mark, in terms of just getting devices and lead times. And I guess when you look at that and you're fixing those problems, having those design skills, going back to those design principles, allows you to, maybe spin up a new board if you need to look at an alternative device. How important has design been during this semiconductor shortage?
Oh, extremely, extremely beneficial to have it in-house. We've seen a lot of customers quickly designing chips out that they couldn't get to design something in, that they knew was available or readily available. So it was funny. Even GM made a big announcement about that last week, that they were able to design out a lot of their problem chips, and they actually didn't see a financial burden this year because of it. So it's quite interesting that even the big companies have been able to stick hand around some of it.
Yeah. And if you think about it, if they're adding 26 weeks to the lead time, then spinning up a board isn't that big of a problem in that time, especially if you've got that in-house design capability. So what about the next 40 years, guys? What are you thinking, Mark? How do you envisage, I don't know, the next 4 years, let alone the next 40?
Well, I think for us, it's just a continued growth plan. We're still running at about 10 to 15% growth every year, and I think the goal is just to maintain that. There might be a few M&A in the middle of that, but pretty much just organic growth primarily. There seems to be enough business out there that we don't need to purchase somebody so much as we just need to just grow internally.
Yeah, you can grow your capacity, and as you do that, you're doing more and more digital transformation in the business. You're doing more and more automation, more automated inspection. So you're actually, kind of improving the performance of the business as well as what you deliver to the customers, I guess.
Correct.
Yeah. And that's huge when you look at it. And, I'm sure, Bernie, you'd agree with this. If you're gonna have a business that can sustain for 40 years, you've got to get that customer relationship right at the beginning, in the middle, all the way through.
Well, you might not believe it, but we probably still have a few customers from the 80s are still with us, which is absolutely amazing. Because I think, Mark, I think we could probably think of 3 or 4 names that are still with us for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So
and that continuity and longevity is really valuable, and it's not just customers; it's the team as well. You've got members of the team there that I guess have been there for decades. Has anybody been there almost as long as you, Bernie?
Yes, Kathy's been. I hired her in 1984.
Wow,
and she's still here. I think Christina came in around late 90s. Yeah. She's still here. And then we basically when we bought our first line, we also bought I think 11 or 12 people. We bought a small line from another manufacturer that was doing the work for us at that time, and I think the 11 or 12 people came with it. And I guarantee you, at least 8 or 9 people of that early group are still here from 2002.
Yeah. Well, we talked about the importance of having that background in design. You talk about the continuity and the longevity of the staff. At the end of the day, Mark, it's all about having a great team. You can buy all that equipment and you can invest all that money in plant and machinery, but you need people that are passionate and understand what needs to be done.
Yeah, we have many long-term employees now. If you really look across the board, it's amazing. Tons of people have been here more than 5-10 years now.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think there's still quite a few people here who are coming up to their 20th.
20,
Yeah.
20th anniversary.
It's nice when you count them and count people's career in terms of decades, isn't it? Rather than just 2 or 3 months or years or whatever.
The most interesting part about those that have been here for almost 20 years, a lot of them are over 65. And they're still working here.
Yeah.
They're production people that just won't quit.
There you go. Well, it's you're an example to them, Bernie. Still coming in every day in your 70s. They're going to have to try and keep up. So they'll stick around, I think.
Yeah, but how long can this go on?
Well, it's just all about the next generation. Mark looks like he's got a good few years in him, don't you think?
Yeah. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
He's got a lot of years left.
Yeah. There you go. So I see a long future. So, and you're doing the right things. You're taking great care of your customers. You understand the whole product life cycle from start to finish. I think that's essential. And what you're doing in terms of regional manufacturing and doing that and really achieving, good value for your customers, it really resonates at the moment. And that's what people are looking for. So, long may it continue, I say. Absolutely. Guys, thanks so much for talking to me. Thanks for your time. Congratulations on reaching this substantial milestone, and look forward to chatting again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.